Shadows crawling in the bright daylight, voices twisted, feeding us the blight, telling stories that were never true. We fight to break on through. Lies are woven like a velvet chain, slick with power driving us insane. But the fire burns deep within our chests. We fight, we'll never rest. We rise with fists clenched high, tearing through the veil, the sky. Truth a blade that cuts the dark. We fight, we'll never rest. We rise with fists clenched high, tearing through the veil, the sky. Truth's a blade that cuts the dark. We fight, we make a mark. They call us rebels, say we've lost our way, but freedom's blood, it fuels the fray. From the ashes comes a brighter light. We fight with all our might. See resolve in the roaring storm, breaking cages will rewrite the norm. No more silence, no more disguise. We fight with open eyes. We rise with fists clenched high, tearing through the veil, the sky. Truth a blade that cuts the dark. We fight, we'll never rest. We rise with fists clenched high, tearing through the veil, the sky. Truth's a blade that cuts the dark. We fight, we make a mark. We fight, we make a mark.
That was not a great day. See the picture.
Watching history, folks.
Is everything okay?
Watching history in
Thank
the
you very much.
making every day
Thank you
right
very
now.
much.
It's wild. What a time to be alive. Welcome everybody to the Ace Report tonight. Everybody's liking my earlier shows. I appreciate that. I like them too. It's nice to have a little bit more energy and not be fighting off sleep. Hope we can keep it going. Anyways, what's up everybody? Tonight we're going to cover the epic meeting today actually, of world leaders and Trump, figuring out what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, trying to end this thing, Trump bringing in the Europeans and just, man, bossing it up. It's if there's any doubt who's the boss in these meetings, man, my God. I mean, just watch them. It takes 5 minutes to figure it out. Actually, it takes about 5 seconds. But, some people are slow, especially on the left. Anyways, and libertarians, except you, Axe, except you. Anyways, like, share, subscribe. I appreciate it. If you hit that like, just take 1 second, hit that before we get going. Help the algorithm out. And listen, guys, this is so much bigger than any of us can imagine. We've talked about a little bit on my last live on Friday night, but we're going to deep dive a little bit more the implications of this peace deal and what I think Trump is setting up, which could just be massive in so many ways. And I'm not just talking about the bodies in Ukraine ceasing to die. So it's bigger than that, even though that is obviously the most important thing. So Anyways, let's I'm gonna say hey to some peeps and then we're gonna get started. What is up? D6 report numero uno tonight. What's up, buddy? Frank Anastagio, Wago Waco, Cassing, Vin Man, 5 stars in the house. Mark R. Shogun. I love it. Shout it out. Vince Felice. He's so happy I'm early. I know, Vince. You sleep. Lucid, what's going on? The one what to do, Agent Orange. Sup? Danny Gigal. It's been a while. BN Pro, Curtis Hatcher, Scott Volkovich, Stephen Chroma, Kathy, Hero at Large. I would try to do all your guys' names in my my Alex Jones impersonation, but I want to be able to talk the rest of the time. Pat M, what's going on? Michael Tucker, Randy Atwell, Michael Boyle, So Now What, Dips Patel, Lyrical. Good to see you all. We'll talk a little stocks at the end too, because I do think we're starting to, I don't know, Finger looked very interesting today. So we might be seeing some in Finger, but we'll talk about that at the end. Please do not let me forget, because sometimes the stream just goes so well, I get carried away and forget to get into that. Anyways, okay, they brought him in today to say the impossible. Everybody was like after the Putin summit, oh, this doesn't mean anything. This doesn't mean anything. Trump's just rolling out the red carpet for Putin. He's just showing us his true colors. Nothing's going to get done. Blah, 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 blah. The media has been freaking out all weekend. The Democrats are lying all weekend. You know the jig. We've all been here before. But Trump comes in with massive confidence today. And this is like one of the first things he says. We'll play it here.
We will come to a resolution today, I think, on almost everything, including probably the security. And that's pretty much the story.
Big words from Trump. We'll come to a resolution on pretty much everything today. That's saying a lot. That's really saying a lot. There's so many people. You guys, how many times have we been close, right? Trump in his campaign, I will end it on day one. Everybody was, very critical that he didn't, even though it's pretty clear. When Trump says that stuff, he really means he'll get the ball rolling. He doesn't necessarily mean he'll do it on day one. But, that's the game they get to play. And, Trump's own words, you're going to be literal. You can get him in trouble. But he has tried multiple times. We've come close, talked with Putin, talked with Zelensky, and then they keep bombing out. And why? We've talked about this. Europe does not want this to end. They don't want their cash cow, Ukraine, to fall apart. They don't want Russia to get a win. They hate Russia. They want Russia to fall. They want every excuse to ruin Russia, but that's not going to happen here. And what was surprising today was how well some of these leaders were receiving Trump right here. Well, I'll let you hear the words of the NATO secretary. He had quite a few nice things to say today, but this is pretty interesting stuff.
Mark, as head of NATO, maybe you could say a few words, please.
Yes, I will be very brief. I really want to thank you, President of the United States, dear Donald, for the fact that you, as I said before, broke the deadlock, with President Putin by starting that dialogue. And I think it was in February that you had the first phone call, and from there we are now where we are today. And that is, I think, if we play this well, we could end this. And we have to end this. We have to stop the killing. We have to stop the destruction of Ukraine's infrastructure. It is a terrible war. So I'm really excited. And let's make the best out of today.
Do we think the NATO chief got the memo? I don't think he got the memo. We have to stop this. It's terrible war. It sounds like they didn't get to him. Keir Starmer, Macron. This guy is just singing Trump's praises left and right. Telling Trump, you broke the deadlock. You went to Putin. We're closer than ever to breaking this out. I mean, this is, it just shows you, I think, the influence Trump's starting to have. And remember, when we see this stuff, we get like 30 minutes live. They show us they don't show us the real conversations. Let me put it that way. The press gets some access. They can ask some questions. They get to throw some stuff out there. But the real conversations happen behind the scenes. I kind of have a feeling Trump's been pulled all these guys together and said, listen, we're doing this or I'm bringing you all down. I have a feeling that's what happened because you got Keir Starmer here, you got Zelensky, Macron was there, we got the Dutch guy, the German Merkel, Meloni was there from Italy, which we love her, she's great, but they all came and they were all deferential and they were all like, Trump brought them together in a way that I don't think they can escape without a deal. And now he's making them say all this in public, so if they go back on it, it's going to look worse than ever. Because last time he brought Zelensky in, they came up with a deal. Yes, Zelensky needs a high chair, huh, Kasink? Look how tiny he is. He's the Munchkin land, man. But anyways, they brought Zelensky in last time, basically had a deal with Putin. This back in March. And then Zelensky went back, talked to Macron, talked to Starmer, and they were like, oh yeah, we're going right back in. We can't afford to stop this. That happened last time because Trump wasn't in the room. They were all operating behind Trump's back. But now Trump's hit them with tariffs. He's brokered these trade deals. He's flexed American muscle. And he's basically telling all of them, you don't own me. You don't own America. You'll no longer pillage from us. And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to militarily destroy you. I will economically destroy each and every one of you if we don't get this together. And they can't stand it. They just can't. They cannot allow this to happen because they are all holding on to the line of how do we stay in power? If we already, it's fragile. Their people are starting to get tired of the mass immigration, the killings, the rapes happening from their massive immigrant populations. They're not enforcing crime. You think, guys, California is bad? Imagine every single country in Europe is basically California times 10. It's leftist. California feels like 1950s America compared to Europe. So that's how bad it is over there. And I don't know if you guys follow it at all, but it is awful. It is awful. Just one example of how bad it is. In like 2002, I don't have the exact numbers here, but these are going to be close. I just saw this the other day. In the early 2000s in UK, there was like 4,000 something reported rapes, which is horrible. That's way too many, right? Remember, the UK is, population-wise, it's not even the size of Texas, but still, that's awful. Well, just last year, I think it was close to 40,000. How in a modern day society do you get 10 times worse in one of the worst, most egregious crimes that can be committed? It's because they're not enforcing laws and they're allowing just third world immigrants to come in just like Biden did. But they've been doing this for years into a much smaller countries and they haven't stopped it. So they're allowing their countries to fall apart and the people are getting sick of it. The only way these people still stay in power is if they can keep their economies up somehow, but it's still not going to work. It's eventually going to, the people are so sick of it, it's going to fall. But that's their last card to play, is that somehow, some way they got to hope they can keep their economies up. And if Trump breaks them on that, all these guys collapse. And so I believe that's what he did. He's got them in the room now. We've got these trade deals going on. He's worn them down over the last 6 months. And now I think they actually he might force them to have peace, especially by getting them on record saying they want it. So here's one of the reports. This is Brett Baer real quick. I'll just share this real quick, what he was saying.
Historic meeting between European leaders, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and President Trump. Concluding with the leaders about an hour ago. However, it's still continuing at the White House. It comes just 3 days after President Trump met with Russian leader Vladimir Putin in Alaska. President Trump says one of his goals is to set up a three-way summit with Putin and Zelensky. He says he thinks a deal to end the war can be reached. Now, the meeting lasted longer than anticipated. Leaders started arriving there at about 1 p.m. this afternoon. They are still at the White House. We're told in the Oval Office. President Trump and Zelensky have been meeting in the Oval Office with others for about 20 minutes. We plan to have an exclusive interview with Ukrainian President.
This meeting, I believe, lasted over 5 hours, guys. So just, there's definitely some stuff being figured out. And then you got stuff like this coming out. Like, here's the president of Finland, who this guy seems to have decent. You never know. all, the globalists over there. But what he says is pretty awesome.
In the past 2 weeks, we've probably had more progress in ending this war than we have in the past 3.5 years. And I think the fact that we're around this table today is very much symbolic in the sense that it's Team Europe and Team United States helping Ukraine. And the progress that we're looking out of this meeting is about the security guarantees.
Do you hear the submission? Who's done that progress? It's all been Trump. They haven't done a darn thing. They've been just feeding the Ukrainian military to just try to stay alive and keep this war going. So when he says more progress has happened in the last 2 weeks, it's all Trump. And it all started with reaching out to Putin last week. So he brings them in now. And they're no longer saying like, well, we have to figure out this. They're not waffling back and forth anymore. They're saying, we're just figuring out the security guarantees. You know what that tells me? That tells me they've already agreed to give up the land. They're going to give up. They're going to let Crimea go. We're not going to bring it up anymore. And they're going to let the Donbas go. And then whatever else Putin's taken. I have a feeling that's already been agreed to. And what they're figuring out now is the security detail, which is what are the guarantees that if Russia breaks this, that Europe will back them up with. Right now, it's been announced since this will sell, not give, $100 billion of weapons if Ukraine buys it using European money. So, but that's if Putin goes over on the deal. So this is all being hashed out, but you can hear it in his voice. This guy is like, this is a celebration. We're on the brink of peace. This is going to shock the world when this happens, because I don't know how much you guys listen to media. I try not to listen to the left too much, except for when I'm gloating when they're freaking out. But I do listen to some mid-tier stuff, which brings in both sides. And the left has been celebrating. They've been dancing around the fact that they got Trump on the Russia-Ukraine war, that he hasn't been able to break it. Okay, he hasn't been able to stop it. And they've just been celebrating left and right. This is a great failure of Trump. Trump's a peacemaker. He can't even figure this one out, blah, blah, blah. They're just having a good old time. And yet we're right on the verge right here. So when this happens, it will be one of the great accomplishments that nobody can deny. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, because the American people, this is going to wake up a lot of American people too. Because this is the big one. And don't get me wrong, he's already stopped a bunch of wars. We've seen some good stuff, but this is the biggie. And if this one gets solved here in this way, which I think it's about to, this just seems like it. In fact, it went so well that in the middle of it all, Trump interrupted the meeting to call Putin. I see somebody just dropped that lyrical. I see you, buddy. But yeah, Trump interrupted the meeting to call Putin. Listen, you don't do that unless things are going really well. So he calls Putin. He's probably like, hey, would you be okay with this? Or is this is what we're talking about? What do you think? This means they were negotiating with Putin in the middle of it all. Just wild stuff. Wild stuff. Once I'm done covering this, guys, don't worry. If you're a little bored, you're like, I already know what happened. I'm sorry. But we're going to finish covering this, and I'm going to tell you what I think some of the implications are coming that are going to be massive. All right. I wrote up a little report tonight for you guys, actually. So we're about to get to that. Here's Trump after the meeting. Had a very good meeting with distinguished guests: Zelensky, Macron, Stubb of Finland, Maloney, Italy, Keir Starmer, Merz, and European Commission von der Leyen, and the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, in the White House, which ended in a further meeting in the Oval Office. During the meeting, we discussed security guarantees for Ukraine, which guarantees will be provided by the various European countries with coordination by the USA. Everyone's very happy about the possibility of peace for Russia-Ukraine. At the conclusion, I called Putin and began the arrangements for a meeting at a location to be determined between Putin and Zelensky. After that meeting takes place, we'll have a trilat, which will be the two presidents plus myself. Again, this was good. Early step for a war, been going on almost 4 years. J.D. Vance, Rubio, and Witkoff are coordinating Russia and Ukraine. So I think Russia's completely on board. And this tells me that in this meeting, there must have been something agreed upon. So the question is, we're going to all be watching very closely, is that will they try to undermine this in the meantime? Will Zelensky show up and spit in Putin's face? Will the Europeans at the last minute say there's something they just can't do? Who knows? But I have a feeling if this one blows up, it's going to be massive repercussions for everybody involved. I don't think Trump will put up with it. So this one's gotta work out. I believe that. Here's a little breakdown on what they've decided.
The German chancellor has just told reporters that the president spoke with Vladimir Putin, agreed that the Putin-Zelensky meeting is going to happen within 2 weeks. So that's from Chancellor Merz. Listen, we've got more with the panel. Final thoughts about today's White House.
You guys realize this is the largest war between major countries since World War II? I mean, it hasn't felt like it to us because we're over here in America and it's way over there and our troops haven't been involved. But when you take in deaths and like the major countries involved, this is the largest worldwide war since World War II. And Trump's about to single-handedly end it. So, I mean, this is so historical. Again, it might not feel like it as much to us, but in the broader picture of things, the way history is going to look at it, it's going to look at it as basically just a step down from World War II, but a war that Trump just ended. And it's going to look very poorly upon the Biden administration, especially as more comes out. We already know why, but eventually the rest will come out and say why. And then here's the NATO secretary just talking about how impressed he was with everything.
Let me first say that this was a very successful day.
So right there, after the Putin summit, there was all these papers saying it wasn't successful, it was terrible, it all fell apart. In fact, one of Fox News' own reporters was reporting that it didn't go well, and then her host called her out live on air and was saying, well, they're saying it all went well. So they all tried to run that, but now we have the NATO secretary on record immediately after the meeting saying it went extremely well. There is nothing the media can do to overturn that. This is a European. They worship these guys. These are their superheroes. It's like if you put up a liberal superhero, it'd be like Obama, Clinton, and then anyone in Europe. Anyone who's a leader in Europe. So by him saying that's massive.
And I agree with you that President Trump is a pragmatic peacemaker, as you, I think, said. And what he did this year, breaking the deadlock, starting the conversation with Putin, but also putting pressure. We have had the NATO summit, the 5%, which was a big foreign policy success of President Trump. And then he decided to, again, have lethal weapons go into Ukraine, paid for by the Europeans. And he put secondary sanctions, tariffs on India. So he's putting pressure, but he is also looking for ways to solve this, to bring this war to an end. So today was very successful. We discussed the security guarantees. We will work on those over the coming days and then have another meeting virtually with this group of leaders and the president.
How interesting is it that a European guy called out the tariffs as a huge success? That's pretty interesting. It makes me wonder if the NATO guy isn't one of the globalists, but I don't know. I don't know enough about him. I gotta look into him. The media is already trying to spin this, as our girl Batya is calling out. Says, just look at this dishonest headline. There's Batya. Trump goes to Alaska, shocks everyone by getting Putin to agree to Western security guarantees for Ukraine, but the New York Times reported like this is something Europeans are trying to squeeze out of an unwilling Trump. And here's the headline. Zelensky and European leaders press Trump for security guarantees. These people are so shameless. They just don't care. It's so like, and here's what's so sad. Literally millions of Americans will read this and believe this is exactly how it went down because they won't go to the source. They won't listen to clips. They won't do any research. They'll just read the New York Times and call it a day. And this is the little bit of power they still have. Thankfully, we're a large country and the vast majority of people are no longer getting their news from this space, but there's still a few million people that do. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And in case we forgot, I wanted to share this clip of her sharing about the Donbas. because this is going to be one of the things that they're going to, I believe, is going to be asked for and agreed to, but the left is going to freak out about. And so here's Batya breaking it down why it's not a big deal that they're taking the Donbas region.
People seem to have forgotten that at the beginning of this war, the Donbas region, which is where all of, the negotiating is going to have to happen, that sort of, sliver, was not actually part of Ukraine. There was a civil war there, and it had declared independence. And I was reporting this out.
Real quick, how many of you guys knew that? How many knew that the Donbas, before Putin invaded Ukraine, the Donbas region, which is what we all hear about as, part of Ukraine. How many of you known that it was a civil war and it actually wasn't legally part of Ukraine when they invaded? I bet it's not that many. And if it is, I'm very impressed. You guys are the smartest audience on YouTube and X and Rumble. But if you didn't know that, no harm, no foul, no big deal, because almost nobody knows this. But that's a major detail they always leave out.
If you talked to people who lived there, they would say to you, why has Putin not come and saved us from this genocidal neo-Nazi Ukrainian regime? I bring this up only to say that I can see how the discourse over the last 2 years from doing punditry around this issue, if you bring that up, there's like legit denial about it now on the, among the Democrats, on the left, on the people who want to keep funding this war and live under this fantasy that Ukraine can win. And I think that if Zelensky comes in thinking, I'm going to have all of Europe and all of the Democrats backing me to say we're not giving up this land, he has to withdraw from the Donbas, which in the intervening 2 years Putin has annexed, that is going to be such a non-starter and I think will be a huge mistake. What do you guys think?
I say this all the time.
Isn't that wild? It's just wild to think that so much of this war, so much has been misreported to us. You just can't trust anything they say. And there's always so much more nuance going on. Sometimes it's outright lies. Sometimes it's outright, they're completely changing the truth. But other times they're just twisting it. And this is one of those instances where they're just twisting it enough, though, to like really turn people's opinions on it. And if you think Ukraine, like, most Americans, even on the right, even the people who don't want to give Ukraine weapons anymore, they're just tired of it. But a lot of them still believe that Ukraine was just minding its own business one day. Everybody was out there picking flowers. And all of a sudden they just looked over a hill and here was Russian troops coming in for no reason. It was like, oh, that's horrible. Why would they do such a thing? Yeah, that's not what was going on at all. At all. But they have no idea about the color revolution in 2014. They have no idea Ukraine was about to join NATO, which broke every agreement ever made with Russia, putting an enemy at Russia's borders. They have no idea about that. They have no idea that there was civil war in the Donbas and it was already just up in arms and a lot of them wanted to already run over to Russia. They had no idea that Russians were tired of getting messed with. Putin was tired, pushed and pushed. They had no idea that Putin offered peace terms before it even started. They don't know any of this. Because nobody tells them. And you have to go listening. You have to deep dive. You have to listen to shows like mine or much bigger shows like, listen to Dave Smith or Tucker Carlson or right-wing media, whatever it is. You have to go digging. And most Americans are never going to do that. So it's the wildest thing of how little people understand about this war. But what they do know, we've come far enough to know it's a big freaking deal. I remember at the church I went to, which was no lefties. I know the pastor. I was friends with him in Texas before I moved. He was a good man, conservative, loved Trump. When this whole Putin Ukraine war started, it was like they spoke up on the behalf of Ukraine. They didn't get Ukrainian flags go that far, but it was like even they you get duped because if you don't go deep diving, you don't really know what's going on stuff like this, especially when it's across the world. Unfortunately, this one across the world does involve us. And so it's important to get educated on it. But anyways, it's just crazy. Michael Tucker says, maybe after all is said and done, they'll open up a Donbas pro shop. I love it. Dijanon says, Root, the boss of NATO under Trump, is very hated by a group of people right-wing in his country. His party's okay with the LGBTQ. You mean like the trans stuff, probably. Every country deserves that peace. I agree with you, Diginon. They do. But on top of that, you just don't mess with another country's sovereignty. And NATO is a direct threat to the sovereignty of Russia not because NATO's offensive. First of all, NATO shouldn't exist. NATO was created to fight the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union was so massive. It was Russia, but then it was a bunch of other countries they took over and brought in, and it was growing and growing. And it was this blob that was terrifying of military might and manufacturing muscle. Obviously, they were all slaves and starving, but they were able to be very powerful. And so we created NATO to fight the spread of the Soviet Union. Well, once the Soviet Union fell, the whole need for NATO disappeared because Russia's just a country now. We don't have a ADO, Asian American alliance to fight China. Once it's a sovereign nation, you don't need a unity compact agreement to fight another country. So NATO should have been disbanded. So if I'm Russia, I definitely see NATO as, imagine if there was 25 countries aligned militarily against us. It's one thing to be like the BRICS nations, which are aligned economically against us, but imagine if they were aligned militarily against us. That and then Mexico wanted to join. You think we'd be okay with that? I don't think so. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you should never invade another country, but at the same time, you should never poke the bear until it takes you over. Okay. So, actually, I'm not going to go there yet. I wanted to bring this up. So give me a second here, guys. So I talked about this a little bit last week, and I wanted to deep dive this more because I think what's going on here is going to be much bigger than just peace. And so this is what, I came up with this today. I did a bunch of research and then working with AI, ChatGPT, I put together a report today on what would happen if Putin and Trump met and they create an economic alliance as well as a peace alliance. Now, I've been saying for a while that I think what Trump is putting together could end up being an economic miracle that could save us from the economic downturn that we should have based on the fundamentals of our economy. And I think this might be part of it. In fact, I think this is going to yield much bigger results than we could imagine. So I don't know how many of you know this, but the Russian-Ukraine war affected the global economy much more than anybody admits or talks about. And the reason why is because all the resources in those regions is massive. Ukraine is like the breadbasket of Europe. So a bunch of bread, other foods, fertilizers, all that kind of stuff. And then Russia, it's, you name it. I mean, they got everything in Russia. Commodities, oil, I mean, you name it. Russia's pretty much got it. It's massive and so many resources. So once they went into war, and Ukraine got tied up and Russia got tied up and then there's sanctions and all this stuff, it actually is estimated that global inflation as a whole rose 1.2 to 1.5% just because of the war. Now that's a big freaking deal. That's a massive impact on the global economy. So if they come to peace, you got that. But then on top of that, add what I think Trump's trying to form, an economic alliance with Russia that we've never had before, especially with the connection between Alaska and Russia right there and doing stuff through the Arctic, which we haven't seen before. So I put together some prognostications with data and some speculation, and this is what's possible if they work this out. So if the Ukraine war ends in 2025 and the U.S. strikes a comprehensive trade and investment agreement with Russia, including full sanction relief, tariff reduction, expanded commodity energy flows, the U.S. economy could capture 0.4 to 0.6% annual GDP boost for several years. That's crazy. That equates to 110 to 170 billion per year, or 500 to 800 billion in cumulative output by 2030. Here comes the upside. Inflation relief, Global energy and commodity prices dropped 10 to 30%, saving U.S. households and firms 150 to 200 billion annually. Trade revival. Bilateral trade rebounds from 3.5 billion to 40 to 60 billion, with U.S. exports hitting 15 to 20 billion a year and supporting 75,000 to 100,000 jobs. An investment surge would be that U.S. firms re-enter Russian energy, miner, and infrastructure with 20 to 50 billion FDI over 5 years. This is all estimates, of course, but this is based on if we forge a strong economic impact with Russia, what could come of it based on what's known about Russia and America and how our countries could help each other if we actually pursued this. This is wild stuff. So GDP growth, 0.1 to 0.3% annual growth. Multiplier effects push the total 0.4 to 0.6% extra GDP. This could turn an economy that's kind of limping around at 1.5% to be strong at 2%, or a strong economy at 2.5, 3% into almost a roaring territory of 3.5, 4%. I mean, this is wild stuff. This mirrors a mini stimulus package with new federal spending, or without new federal spending. That's the key right there. This is like, so if we figure this out, it'd be like injecting our economy with jobs and money and cheaper energy. That sounds great to me. I mean, the fact that we've been so tough on Russia even since the Soviet Union fell just makes no sense. And so it makes all the sense. Look at our relationship economically with China. Even though they're stealing our secrets, they're stealing our IP and just abusing us left and right, manipulating their currency. We've kept trade open with them. And yet Russia, we've been hard on, and Russia doesn't offer us the cheap goods China does, but you could make the argument Russia's even better because of what they offer, which is energy. And cheap energy powers the world, makes the world better in every single way. Inflation relief, just by the war, you cut 1 to 1.5% of global inflation. The peace could cut US CPI up to a point in the first year. So we could go immediately from whatever CPI just came out, it's like 3, we could hit 2% immediately just by ending this war. How crazy is that? Inflation could just drastically reduce immediately. And if we trust what Truflation's saying, which is like 1.7%, we could go down to 0.7% inflation based on this. That's wild. Every 1% inflation drop is 120 to 150 billion in household savings. Trade expansion, I talked about that a little bit. Energy. I mean, you could see the energy. Oil could go down 10 to 20 bucks a barrel. Cheaper gas, 25 to 40 cents lower. LNG exports, that means cheaper natural gas, cheaper heating, commodities, metals, tech. I mean, you get it. It's good everywhere. And so we get to the conclusion. It says, in best case scenario, peace plus a trade pact with Russia wouldn't just end a costly war, could act as deflationary shock, trade stimulus, and a supply chain stabilizer. For the U.S., it's not transformational like a $2 trillion stimulus package, but it's a solid, sustained economic kicker that strengthens resilience, lowers costs, and restores competitiveness in key industries. What if a trade route, what if new deals with Russia ends up being our economic miracle? How crazy would that be, guys? I'm just saying, there is so much more going on. It would also end, and by the way, we don't really have any reliance on Europe, but it would end any last need to keep Europe happy about anything. We could treat them like they deserve to be treated, as an ally who hasn't been a very good friend. We could start actually putting them in that place even more so than we already have. I think Russia, once they're done with this, if Trump negotiates this fairly and they agree to the deal, they're going to have no desire to go back to Ukraine because of all the security guarantees for Ukraine. But they're going to have every reason to want to partner with us economically and grow. It will change Russia in a positive way forever. And it will open up a lot of resilience in our economy that we frankly need right now, because this would be real gains, not fake, not inflationary, not federally stimulated. This would be real gains that could change our country going forward in a massive, massive way. And while it says it's not transformational like $2 trillion stimulus package, I actually disagree with that statement because this would be ongoing. Our kids and grandkids could grow up knowing Russia is a great ally. How crazy is that? It sounds crazy, but guys, we are almost 40 years past the Soviet Union. It's time to move on. And there's no reason we can't all economically gain. So that's huge. Cassink says, Trump telling Putin, let's make money, not bombs. That's right, man. Make love, not war, right? Make money, not bombs. But it makes all the sense in the world. And it would force everybody to take Russia seriously on the world stage again, not as a feared enemy, but as a partner. And guys, that's how world peace is brought around. And this would be destructive to the globalists because one of their great gains, one of the things they've always been able to gin up war for, funding for, is fighting Russia. If that's gone, by the way, if this deal's made, the next step would be dismantling NATO, which I totally believe Trump would aim for over the next couple of years. So just it could be massive. Okay, let's hit some other news that came out today that's really big in my opinion. Trump's about to sign executive order eliminating mail-in ballots. Let me read what Trump wrote because it's great stuff. I'm going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots. And also, while we're at it, highly inaccurate, very expensive, and seriously controversial voting machines with costs 10 times more than accurate and sophisticated watermark paper. There's the watermarks. Raise your hand if you've been hearing and talking about watermarks for the last 5 years. Yep, I know you're out there. Toe Cramp, where are you? I know you're on here, buddy. Which is faster and leaves no doubt at the end of the evening as to who won, who lost the election. We're now the only country in the world that uses mail-in voting. All others gave it up because of massive voter fraud encountered. We will begin this effort, which will be strongly opposed by the Democrats because they cheat at levels never seen before, by signing executive order to help bring honesty to the midterms in 2026. Remember, the states are merely an agent. This is a big statement right here. Remember, the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes. He's actually right on this because he's talking about federal elections. The states are just acting on behalf of this federal government. Now, the Constitution does say the states can hold their elections the way they want to, but there's going to be some interesting court battles over this. Let me put it that way. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the president, tells them for the good of our country to do. With their horrible radical left policies like open borders, men playing in women's sports, transgender, woke for everyone, so much more, Democrats are virtually unelectable without using this completely disproven mail-in scam. Elections can never be honest with mail-in ballots voting, and everybody, in particular Democrats, knows this. I and the Republican Party will fight like hell to bring honesty and integrity back to our elections. The mail-in ballot hoax using voting machines complete to those disaster must end now. Remember, without fair and honest elections, strong and powerful borders, you don't even have a semblance of a country. Thank you for the attention to this matter. Listen, why is this a big deal? Well, there's a lot of obvious reasons. And this won't change everything at first. This has to be federal law to change everything. I'm telling you guys right now. So do not be surprised if he signs this on day one and gets slapped by a big court order. But here's where it matters. The red states will line up. The red states will fall in line. If the red states fall in line, even that will change the balance in the midterms. It will ensure that some blue districts in these red states vote red. It'll ensure that there'll be less blue governors that maybe make it in, that sneak in, because there's a lot of fraud even in red states. In fact, Texas was awful. Do you guys remember for years they were saying Texas is purple, it's about to turn blue? We're close. And if you look at the 2016 or 2020 election, it was getting a little close. It was a little scary. It was within like 5 points, which Texas just should not be within 5 points. What happened? They cleaned up their elections on one hand, and on the other hand, they just a bunch of red people moved there. But Trump won Texas massively this last election by almost 15 points. So you take all that and you say, okay, cleaning up the elections Look at the swing. Now Texas isn't even considered, like they've lost all hope of getting Texas back. Look what's happened in Florida. Florida was purple. It went for Barack Obama, and then Trump carried it twice. It did go for Trump he carried it 3 times actually, barely the first election. And then DeSantis now is winning elections by 20 points. Trump won it by 18 or something like that, 14 points, somewhere in that range. This is what happens when you clean up elections. And yes, the Democrats already were losing votes because they're unpopular and it got crazy, blah, blah, blah. But the cleaning up elections added, I think in Texas it added anywhere from 4 to 6 points. I think in Florida it added anywhere from 3 to 5 points. That's massive. That swings a lot of elections. So even if the red states just fall in line, that will clean up a lot of this. And then it becomes even more possible we get this passed into law. It's going to be very difficult for the Republicans with the minor majority to pass it into law in time for the next election, especially because they're probably going to need 60 votes in the Senate. But it's going to get close. It's going to get close. So in the blue states, they're going to fight back. And they won't, I guarantee you, they will not implement this unless the Supreme Court upholds it. And then even then, they're going to find ways around it. But even if it has a 1% impact, that saves the midterms. Even if it's just 1%. And I think this could have a 2 to 3% impact, which means we could massively win the midterms, especially in the House, because of this. So that's a big deal. It's a big flipping deal. And anyways, let's see what Trump had to say about it, because these answers are cool on these things.
Media about doing away with mail-in ballots and potentially electronic voting machines. Can you expand on that and how important
Well, that's a very off-topic, just really quickly. Mail-in ballots are corrupt. Mail-in ballots, you can never have a real democracy with mail-in ballots. And we, as a Republican Party, are going to do everything possible that we get rid of mail-in ballots. We're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots because they're corrupt. And you know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses them because of what's happened. Massive fraud all over the place. The other thing we want change are the machines. For all of the money they spend, it's approximately 10 times more expensive than paper ballots. And paper ballots are very sophisticated with the watermark paper and everything else. We would get secure elections. We'd get much faster results. The machines, I mean, they say we're going to have the results in 2 weeks. With paper ballots, you have the results that night. Most people, many countries use paper ballots. It's the most secure form. So between paper ballots, very, very important, paper ballots, and I think maybe even more important, the mail-in voting. We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. If you have mail-in vote, even Jimmy Carter with this commission, they set it up. He said the one thing about mail-in voting, you will never have an honest election.
You know what's interesting is that Trump hates mail-in voting, always has, and in 2020 he told everybody, do not do the mail-in voting, show up. And there was a conspiracy theory that there was actually all the real ballots were watermarked and the election was going to be overturned, and obviously that didn't turn out. But in this election, he did the opposite. He embraced mail-in voting because he knew they were rigging it. And so he decided to beat them at their own game. And he did. He did. It doesn't mean he cheated, but it does mean he was able to use the mail-in voting and the extra months and weeks to get people to vote, to pull in a lot more votes. So anyways, it's very interesting that he says that, but he won this election. Everybody says it. If you guys remember on election night how confident I was, I knew he'd already won. I just knew it. And it wasn't because of conspiracies. It wasn't because of, some little bird told me. No, it was because of my own personal conviction that he had to win this time, and my own belief in my faith. But on top of that, I knew the data from the mail-in votes and the early voting was high for Trump, and the Democrats weren't going to be able to overcome it. And I know it's true that he won this time because of the mail-in voting, early voting, and he wants to get rid of it. How interesting is that? Think about that. he used it to win, and now he's going to get rid of it. And it also kind of takes away their argument that this is different. I mean, they could argue that, oh, you're going to disenfranchise your own voters. And, well, so this it might be a way to actually convince some Democrats to vote for it in the Senate. I don't know. Probably not, but just telling you, it is interesting what he's setting up.
You have mail-in, and it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it, because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected, because with men and women.
You know how many millions of people just heard him look at the camera, saw him look at the camera, and heard him say the only way the Democrats can win elections is cheat? I love it so much. You know people are waking up left and right daily watching this man.
Sports and with transgender for everybody and open borders and all of the horrible things. And now the new thing is they love crime. They're fighting me on the fact that I've made Washington, D.C. safe. We're not going to get mugged, beaten up, or killed like all the people you've been watching get so badly hurt. I'm glad. I hate to take your time with this, but I'm glad you asked me that question.
You know how I always tell you guys Trump's the greatest marketer I've ever seen? It's because of his persuasion techniques. They're just fantastic. What he just did was so brilliant. He looked at the camera, said, Democrats cannot win without cheating. He knew it. He's looking at the camera. He knows what he's doing. This is where his TV programming comes in handy. Says they cannot win without cheating. And then he spends the next minute listing off 80-20 propositions that only 20% of people hate. Closing the border, the trans issue, crime in our streets. These are 80-20 issues. He just spoke to 80% of Americans and told them the Democrats only win by cheating. And by the way, why the hell are you voting for them anyways? Because they're insane. It's like, who can argue with them after that? Anyways, so again, that was just a master class by Trump. Okay, couple last things I want to show you, and then we're going to call it a night. But a little bit on the Epstein note, okay? Thank you, Mark. Mark says, great show, Ace. Please like, share, subscribe. Yeah, guys, if you don't mind, before we finish here the last 5-10 minutes, please take a minute and hit that like. If you're on Rumble, X, or YouTube. If you're on X, please repost. And if you like what you're seeing and you want more, we've been doing deep dives on members' lives lately, really going into some stuff. And it's been great. And if you want to be a part of that, you can join my Patreon for free in the description here on Rumble and YouTube. Hit that link in the description, get a free month. And if you don't like it, you can quit. No big deal, no money lost. But if you do, you can then join for $5 a month and support the channel. So I thank you guys for that. I appreciate it. So yeah, hit that like though, if nothing else, and subscribe if you're new. Thank you so much. Okay. DOJ is going to start handing over Epstein-related files on Friday to the House. Bill Barr was testifying today as well. How interesting is that? So the Epstein stuff continues to move forward. Trump's playing ball. The DOJ is handing stuff over. So once it's in the House, it's out of their hands, which means you can't make the case Trump's covering up anything anymore. And then we got this little gem from Bill Barr today. Check this out. Bill Barr testified under oath today. Bill Barr, by the way, does not like President Trump. He hates Trump. He was in on it to get rid of Trump. He was in on it to undermine Trump. In so many ways, he undermined Trump's agenda in the first term. He does not like Trump. And under oath today, he says, President Trump is in no way implicated in the Epstein files. And if he was, by anyone who leaked it. Well, you know who knows this? Barr. Because they caught Epstein on Barr's watch. Barr was AG when they got Epstein. He was AG when they went into Epstein's houses and got all the stuff, everything. Barr doesn't like Trump. Barr knows everything about Epstein. Barr's father hired Jeffrey Epstein at his first teaching job, which he was nowhere close to qualified for. His father, Richard Barr, hired Jeffrey Epstein. You cannot make this stuff up. So if you think anybody would know if Trump's involved with Epstein, it is Bill Barr. And he says Trump is in no way implicated. He says the narrative is now out the window as Barr would absolutely take down Trump if he could. He had never seen anything that would implicate Trump in any of this. And if there was anything pertaining to Trump with respect to the list, he felt like the Biden administration would have leaked it out. So there you go. That is massive news. Nobody's going to report it except for here on X and me. But yeah, there's just zero. That is massive that Bill Barr said that. So put it to rest. All these people who, I didn't get any trolls tonight, so I must not have been controversial enough. But the trolls are always coming on here. Trump's part of it. He's in it. Nope. Listen, this is about as good as it gets. So if Trump's not in the files and they're starting to hand him over, what was the waiting for? Why the stalling? I think it was to suck everybody in so they could drop these bombs when the time was right, but we'll see. Real quick on another thing on Epstein here. This is just a great post. It says Epstein had the whole financial system end-to-end compromised, from Obama and his Loop Capital Goldman Sachs partner, Obama White House counsel, and FINRA Board of Governors Catherine Rumler. It says, why does Ryan Cohen wear both? I'm not going to make this a GameStop thing. But it says, how do you launder trillions of dollars around the world for drug and human trafficking trade? Why did Epstein make all his money as a tax consultant for primarily two clients, Les Wexner and Leon Black? So anyways, I have a feeling, if this is true, all the ways Epstein's clients can make tax-free money, which is very true. Epstein's real value was in money laundering. But if this is all true, guys, the Epstein stuff could be the thing that fixes the markets. It's just a thought. We'll see what happens on that note. Okay, we're going to get the 5 House seats. Just wanted to put that, let's let everybody know the Democrats have returned. Texas is going to vote for this now. It's going to pass. So the 5 House seats are definitely coming. And Trump says, shouts it out. But here's the new Texas map. Guess who's losing their seat? Old ghetto dog, Jasmine Crockett. So that's going to be so beautiful to see her gone. But anyways, Texas is going to redistrict. It's going to happen. We're getting our 5 seats, folks. And then finally, and then I will talk stocks. Thank you, Dustin, for reminding me. I will talk just a little bit, I know, at the end here. But the last thing on politics, though, is here's what's coming in for the D.C. Police Union since Trump came in. Robberies down 46% in the last week. I don't know what ADW is. Carjacking, 83% down. Car theft, 20% down. Violent crimes down 22%. Property crime down 6%. All crimes down 8%. Guys, that's huge. Absolutely huge. So Trump is doing it again, man. How are they going to fight this if they keep throwing this out there? He's got 30 days before he needs to either declare a national emergency or get re-upped by the Senate. Imagine what they're going to do in 30 days with what they're already doing in 7. It's pretty crazy. Okay. If you're here for the politics, God bless you. Have a great night. I'm going to go talk just a little bit on stocks right now. Don't have too much to share, but there's a couple things I want to share on the stocks that people on this channel follow. And just my thoughts for whatever they're worth, which they're not always worth that much, but sometimes you never know. All right. And hey, if you really care about the stocks stuff I used to cover, there is still a big group in my in the Discord that talks about this stuff a lot. And it just makes the Discord well worth it. And so for $5 a month at the Patreon, if you're not a member, you get all the members' lives every month, and you get access to the Discord where we have some awesome stock conversations. Especially, there's some really talented guys with charts in our. Obviously, we always break down Ham's calls in the Discord. We talk that through. We talk what's going on, but we also have chart guys who are really doing good work helping us navigate this stuff in the Discord. So if you're not a member and you care about this stuff, you definitely want to be a member for that. So remember, again, you can join for free for the first month. And okay, Finger today really had a nice move up. Ham called it out over the weekend, gave us a 20-day countdown. Listen, guys, I love Ham. He's a friend of mine. When he says a timeline on a squeeze, we've heard this before. I can't say it's going to squeeze, obviously. But whenever he does say something like this, he knows something. And So my opinion is there's been he said there's 200 billion coming in to buy Bitcoin for Finger. And the chart guys are all saying there's room to move here. There might be a pullback after this, but there's room to move up. And BAM stuff is solid on it right now. So if you like finger motion, I think this might be a good time to get back in. I bought today. I personally disclosed I bought today. I got in at $1.43. And look, I mean, I made 20 cents so far today, which is huge, which is almost 15%. So it's starting to move. We'll see what happens. Nothing's ever guaranteed, but even if you just want to just fling it for a quick trade, Finger might be doing something nice right now. It just might. So just something to look out for. And then I'll go to M10 because M10. So you guys, if you forget M10, when Ham first called it out, it was $10, ran to 26. That's a pretty good move. Pretty stinking good move. Unfortunately, most of us didn't sell, myself included. We didn't take our profits, as Ham always tells us to. That's on us. That's on us. But it's now down to 1179. It's been fighting to get back over 12, keeps getting hit back. But a lot of people are saying like they see an opening for it to break back up past 15. You can see volume is nothing today. So we'll see what happens there. I am not buying any more M10 right now, but I am keeping my eye on it very closely because I have a feeling that when this starts moving, it'll move fast. And doesn't mean it'll go to $1 million or anything like that. But if it even moves again to 20, I'm very happy for that. Okay. So that's me there. I'm going to just do two more here. DJT. I have a feeling DJT is about to make a turnaround. It was low in the 16s not too long ago. A lot of bullish stuff coming in on DJT. Some good stories, nothing crazy big news, just a lot of little stuff that I'm being encouraged by. And BAM stuff again, who I really trust his charting, his algorithm. And here's the deal. As long as Trump's president, let me put it that way, I have a feeling DJT is going to do something big. I can't shake it. I feel like DJT is our guarantee that Trump's going to do something to fix the markets because this is his personal wealth. This is literally his personal wealth. He owns over 50% of the shares. Trump is not somebody who lets people steal from him. He is not. He goes after people. He always gets people back. I do not see any way he lets this be destroyed. So again, this is a great low area for DJT. Hasn't been under 20 for long in the last year and a half. And so it's just something I'm paying attention to and have good thoughts on. And then G-Bucks has just been awful. It's been completely destroyed the last few months. But everybody I know is starting to see a lot of hope in the charts again. And Ham's calling out for volume to come in. Today's volume was a little higher than it has been, but you can see the move. It moved up 22.5% today. So we might finally be seeing a move here. Again, nothing's guaranteed. I actually, though, when it comes to G-Bucks, I actually like the company. So personally, I have no problem. If you can buy it, a lot of places don't allow you to buy it. If I could buy this, I would buy in around this level. Under $1, because I think long-term, worst case scenario, this company turns this into a $2 to $5 stock, worst case scenario. So you could still turn around at this level. So that's my thoughts on that. Uncle Andy asked about RLAIF. That's a Williams stock. I know nothing about it. I'll just be honest with you guys. I've done no research on that. I haven't even listened to one of Williams' lives about it. So I have nothing to tell you guys. There's a bunch of guys who talk about it in the Discord. And so I'd recommend you guys check out in the Discord. We have a room for it. So where they talk about it. So that would be my recommendation for that. Just Mike says, what's Ham's target for Finger? Listen, Ham's got the craziest targets. He says $2,500, $3,000. He throws that out there like it's nothing. God, I pray that it could hit that. I obviously don't expect it to. But you know what? In one of these breakout short squeezes, it could. So I don't think Ham's crazy by any means. I actually think he believes it. And I think his history tells him why. And so, and nobody knows it better than him. So, he can have those crazy targets. I still think Finger easily gets to triple digits at least when it runs. I really do. Arius Westfall says Trump absolutely doesn't allow anyone to take from him, especially money. That's why he hates Mexico. He went into business with the wrong man, lost quite a few million. Yeah, so there you go. Everybody who knows Trump knows that. So anyways, guys, that's what I got on the stocks today. I'm sorry I don't have more. I just don't do the same stuff on it I used to because the people closer to the stock are putting stuff out there. There's better charters. There's people like him who actually talk to the companies. So I just, almost everybody listens to those people now. And so I just don't play the middleman anymore. But I'll share my thoughts with you when you guys ask. And we do talk about them a lot in the chat in Discord. So I do recommend you guys hit the link and join. And if you're watching on X, you can go to my profile. It's the pinned post. You can click that link and get a free month to Patreon. And that'll get you into the Discord. So, all right, guys, on that note, I love you. I'm going to pray and get us out of here. So, we need prayer, don't we? Before you leave, though, please like, share, subscribe, share on X if you can, repost, and appreciate you guys. So, Heavenly Father, thank you for today. God bless this amazing chat, Lord, all these people in here. Thank you for them, Lord, all their support. And Father, I just I pray for our country, just that you bring justice, especially to our markets, well, especially to all of it, but our markets, yeah, definitely. And I do pray, God, that something amazing comes out of this Russia-Ukraine peace deal, that it's done, they figure it out, it gets made, so people stop dying, first of all. But secondly, God, so that the bounty can come out of it, God, prosperity. And I don't mean from taking advantage, I just mean from partnerships. That maybe, God, you bring Russia back on the scene as a regular partner, and we can all benefit from that, including them. So I pray for that, Lord. I thank you for President Trump. I pray protection over him and his administration, and wisdom and boldness. And just for everybody in this chat who has a need, anybody watching, God, who has a health issue, anything like that, I just pray peace, health, and blessing over all of them. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow. Good night.